The Mermaid of the Silent River and the Lost Prince Part 4 and 5 finale. The entire village stood frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They only stared at the silent river. The water had risen far beyond its banks, flooding the grass and creeping dangerously close to the houses. And there, standing in the middle of the dark water, was the shadowy figure, tall, still, watching. A cold wind swept through the village. Children began crying. Women pulled their families inside quickly. Even the strongest men slowly stepped backward in fear. "What is that thing?" someone whispered. Zara felt her heart pounding loudly inside her chest. Beside her, Toma swallowed nervously. "I think," he muttered softly, "that is the guardian." The figure suddenly tilted its head slightly, as though it had heard him. Then, the water around it began moving violently. Huge waves rose unnaturally, despite the lack of wind. The villagers screamed and ran. Doors slammed shut. People disappeared into their homes. Within moments, the once busy village became silent. Only Zara, Toma, and her grandmother remained outside. Her grandmother grabbed Zara's arm tightly. "You see now?" she said urgently. "This is beyond us." But Zara could not take her eyes off the river. The figure was staring directly at her. Not the village, not Toma. Her. Then slowly, the shadow raised one hand and pointed at Zara. A deep voice echoed across the river. "You." The ground beneath Zara's feet suddenly shook. Her grandmother gasped softly. "No." The guardian took one slow step forward across the water. The river moved beneath him like it was alive. "You opened the path," the voice growled. Zara stepped backward slightly. I didn't mean to." "You returned to the river?" The voice thundered louder now. "You listened." The water around the guardian darkened further, almost black. Toma quickly stepped in front of Zara. "Leave her alone," he shouted. The guardian slowly turned its head toward him. For one terrifying moment, everything became silent. Even the wind stopped. Then suddenly, Toma was thrown backward violently by an invisible force. He crashed hard against the ground. "Toma!" Zara screamed. Her grandmother quickly pulled Zara behind her. "Do not speak to it," she whispered fearfully. The guardian's glowing eyes fixed on Zara again. "You will bring him to me." Zara's breath caught. "The prince." The figure moved closer. "The human belongs beneath the river." "No!" Zara shouted suddenly. Both Toma and her grandmother looked at her in shock. The guardian went still. Zara's fear was still there. But something stronger was growing inside her now. Courage. "He is not yours," she shouted again. "He deserves to be free." The river exploded violently. Huge waves crashed outward. "Foolish child," the guardian roared. Suddenly, the silver bell hidden inside Zara's wrapper began shaking. Her grandmother's eyes widened immediately. "The bell!" she shouted. "Use it!" Zara quickly grabbed it with trembling hands. The guardian's eyes suddenly darkened with anger. "No." Without thinking, Zara rang the bell. "Rinnin and GGG." The sound echoed across the village. Soft at first, then louder, stronger, almost magical. The guardian suddenly screamed. A terrible, unnatural scream. The river shook violently. Toma stared in shock. "It's working." The dark figure stumbled backward across the water. Smoke like shadows twisted around its body. Zara rang the bell again. "Rinnin GGG." The guardian roared angrily. "Stop." But Zara refused. Again and again, she rang the bell. The river became chaotic. Waves crashed wildly. The sky darkened further. Thunder rumbled overhead. Then suddenly, the water behind the guardian split apart, and from beneath the river, a figure rose slowly, weakly, struggling. "The prince," Zara gasped. He looked pale and exhausted. Water dripped from his body as he fought to stay above the surface. "Help him!" Nereida's voice cried from the river. The mermaid suddenly appeared beside the prince, supporting him. But the guardian quickly turned toward them with furious rage. "You dare defy me?" Dark shadows burst from the water like giant hands. They wrapped around the prince's legs immediately, pulling him back down. "No," Zara screamed. Nerida fought desperately to hold him, but the shadows were too strong. The blood moon is weakening him, Nerida shouted. This is our only chance. Zara looked up. Above the clouds, the moon had turned red. The blood moon had begun. The guardian screamed in fury as the red light touched the river. Its body flickered strangely now, like it was losing strength. Now, Nerida shouted. Ring the bell again. Zara tightened her grip, then rang it with all her strength. Orion and GGG. The sound exploded across the river. This time, the guardian let out a horrifying scream. The dark shadows holding the prince suddenly broke apart. The prince collapsed forward into Nereida's arms, free. For the first time in many years, the river became calm. The guardian staggered backwards slowly, its body fading, breaking apart into dark smoke. But before disappearing completely, it looked directly at Zara and whispered, "This is not over." Then, it vanished beneath the river. Silence. The floodwaters slowly began lowering. The storm above started clearing, and the red moon faded gently back to normal. Zara stood there breathing heavily, the silver bell still shaking in her hands. Then slowly, Nerida brought the prince toward the shore. The prince opened his eyes weakly, confused, lost. And for the first time, after many years beneath the river, the lost prince finally touched land again. The entire village gathered near the riverbank by sunrise. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. The missing prince, alive. After all these years, whispers spread quickly through the crowd. It's really him, the lost prince. How is this possible? The prince sat weakly near the shore, breathing slowly while villagers stared at him in shock. His clothes were torn, his face pale, but he was alive. Zara stood nearby, exhausted. Toma remained beside her quietly, and in the river, Nerida watched silently from the water. Only Zara could fully see the sadness in her eyes. The prince slowly looked around the village. Everything had changed. The houses, the people, even the trees seemed older. Then softly he spoke. "How long was I gone?" Nobody answered immediately, because nobody truly knew. Finally, Zara's grandmother stepped forward slowly. "You disappeared many years ago," she said gently. The prince's eyes widened. Many years? He looked down at his shaking hands. To him, it had only felt like weeks. Maybe months? Not years. Pain slowly filled his face. "My father," he whispered. "The king," the old woman lowered her eyes sadly. "The old king died long ago." Silence. Heavy silence. The prince looked completely broken. The world he once knew was gone. Far behind the crowd, villagers continued whispering nervously about the river. What if the spirit returns? What if freeing the prince angered it? We are cursed. Fear was beginning to spread again. Suddenly, a deep rumbling sound echoed beneath the water. Everyone froze. The calm river slowly began turning dark again. Nereida's eyes widened immediately. "No," she whispered. The water started swirling violently. The guardian was returning. Villagers screamed and backed away in fear. Children cried. Some people fell to their knees praying. Zara grabbed the silver bell quickly, but her grandmother suddenly held her arm tightly. "Wait." Zara looked confused. "What?" Her grandmother stared at the river carefully, then quietly whispered, "The bell weakened him, but it did not destroy him." The dark water rose higher and higher, and then the guardian appeared once again, but this time it looked different, larger, angrier, more unstable. Its body flickered with dark smoke and river water. "You broke the balance." It roared. The entire village shook violently. Houses trembled. Trees bent under the force of the wind. The prince slowly stood, despite his weakness. "Stop this," he shouted. The guardian turned toward him instantly. "You should have remained below." Prince looked at Nerida, then back at the spirit. "I never wanted to harm anyone." For the first time, the guardian hesitated. Nerida slowly moved closer to the shore. Her eyes filled with tears. "This has gone on long enough," she whispered. Zara frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Nerida looked at her sadly. The guardian was not always evil. Everyone fell silent. It was once a protector, Narita explained. It guarded the boundary between worlds. But over time, it became consumed by loneliness, fear, and anger. The guardian let out a furious roar. Enough. Huge waves crashed against the shore violently. But Narita continued anyway. The river trapped souls because the guardian feared being alone forever. The prince slowly stepped forward. You trapped me because you were lonely? The guardian's glowing eyes flickered strangely. For a brief moment, it almost looked human. I protected the balance, it shouted desperately. No, Narita said softly. You protected your pain. Silence. The river calmed slightly, as though even it was listening. Then Zara suddenly understood something. The spirit wasn't only angry, it was suffering. Zara slowly stepped closer to the water. Can the curse end? She asked quietly. Narita looked at the guardian sadly. Yes. The guardian's voice became low and dangerous. Do not tell them. But Narita continued. The curse ends if the guardian willingly releases the river. The prince frowned. And if it refuses? Narita lowered her eyes. Then the river will continue taking people forever. Fear spread through the villagers again. The guardian's body darkened violently. This river is all I have? Zara's heart tightened. For the first time, she pitied it. Then softly she said, You don't have to be alone anymore. The guardian froze. Everyone stared at Zara in shock. Even Toma looked confused. Zara stepped closer carefully. You protected the river for so long. But pain changed you. The spirit's body flickered violently. You think kindness can erase centuries of suffering? It growled. Zara swallowed nervously. No. But maybe forgiveness can. Silence covered the river completely. Narita watched with tears in her eyes. The prince remained still. Even the villagers stopped whispering. Then slowly, very slowly, the guardian's shape began changing. The terrifying shadows weakened. The glowing eyes softened. And beneath the darkness, a human face briefly appeared. Sad, tired, lonely. I only wanted, the spirit whispered weakly, to protect this place. Narita nodded gently. I know. The guardian looked around the village one last time, then toward the endless river. And finally, it whispered. Then let it end. The dark energy surrounding the river exploded upward into the sky like smoke. The water glowed brightly. The violent current slowly calmed. And for the first time in generations, the silent river made a sound, flowing water, peaceful, free. Villagers stared in amazement. Some cried, some laughed. Others simply stood there in disbelief. Then slowly, the guardian faded away completely, like mist disappearing in sunlight. The curse was over. Days later, the kingdom celebrated the return of the prince. But the prince himself had changed deeply. He no longer cared for palace luxury the way he once did. And every evening, he returned to the riverbank, not as a prisoner, but freely, to speak with Narita. As for Zara, the villagers would never forget her courage. The girl who faced the cursed river and ended generations of fear. And from that day forward, the silent river was never feared again. But sometimes, late at night, villagers still claimed they could hear soft singing near the water. Gentle, peaceful, almost magical. And unlike before, nobody was afraid anymore. The end. Watch out for more interesting stories. Like, comment, subscribe, and share.